Tell me why I don't like Thursdays. Tell me why. Well, hello and welcome to this Thursday's Movie News. I am Jonathan C. Walsh, back to speak about some news regarding the world of film and Hollywood and lawsuits, in this case, when it comes to the headline, which if you've clicked on it, you will realise is all about Jason Blum, a world-renowned producer of fantabulous horror movies in the main, but other movies as well. And he has come out and lended his support for ScarJo, as I'm now calling her, Scarlett Johansson, as everyone else on the planet calls us, a lawsuit against Disney, that big behemoth of a studio, which is taking the piss, shall we say, when it comes to actors' pay. Jason Blum has big, extraordinary ideas on what this could metaphorically be about. Or maybe not metaphorically, just fucking flat out what it could be about. It may not just be about her pay. Jason Blum suggests it may be about a bigger, more potent reason. And we're going to get into it. The man, this is coming in from Cinema Blend, incidentally, published by Adam Holmes. Holmes. My dear Watson, Adam Holmes. And I don't know if he's been covering the actual story or if it's from a third party source. It is. He was speaking to Hollywood Reporter. And as you can see here, as part of Hollywood Reporter's extensive write-up on Disney's response to Johansson's, or Johansson's as everyone else seemingly calls us, lawsuit has been received in the Hollywood space. Jason Blum said the following, and he said a couple of things. I'm going to bring this seat up, incidentally. It's a little bit too far back. I was relaxing on it whilst watching Sarpata Parambarai, which is a fucking incredible movie we'll be reviewing tomorrow. And he had this to say, where was my mouse cursor? It's a very difficult thing to do. It's really brave to do, and she's fighting for all of the talent. Now look, this is what I said primarily, before I get into the bigger, more fucking weighty sort of things that he's suggesting she may be fighting this fight for. This is what I said, that listen, we spoke about it yesterday, me and Steve, and I suggested that she's perhaps fighting for those who have none. I think that was actually from Star Wars, incidentally, The Phantom Menace. Yeah, for those who have none. I think that was Shmi Skywalker. Fucking terrible actor. Terrible character. But yeah, I suggested she could perhaps be doing this lawsuit in a fight for other actors, lesser known actors who are not as well off as her, who are perhaps not as good a contract as her. And she is fighting this fight to protect lesser talent from the jaws, the clutches of these big studios and these piranha-like CEOs, i.e. Bob Chapek, who seemingly want to take the money from them and harbour all of this money for themselves. And of course that's via the whole metric of, if that's even the correct word, streaming, and putting the movies on the streaming service now, same day release as theatres. And what that's going to do for those who have pay packets linked directly to the success of the movie, and if it doesn't go out in the streaming service, or if it doesn't go in the theatres, then it's going to directly hit the talent, camera workers, producers, screenwriters, script writers, directors, everybody that's involved in the process of making movies is going to be hit here. And of course, before I actually get into this quote, we did see the likes of Pixar coming out and crying to high heavens over their movies getting put on the streaming service. I believe it was Soul and then Luca. Both get put straight to streaming service. Both completely missed theatrical releases. And I think that was primarily about the desire to see the hard work played out on the biggest screen possible. They were moaning about that a couple of months back. It wouldn't surprise me if some of those people's contracts were linked to success. The pay packet was indelibly linked to it getting in the biggest screen and earning some more money. It wouldn't surprise me if they're screwing over other people in the industry, and it's not just Scarlett Johansson's fight. And that's ultimately why I think she's fighting for those who have no voice. She has a great voice. She is a prominent figure, one of the best actors in the business just now, and it seems she is fighting not only for herself but other people. Emma Stone's fighting as well for Cruella. She's embroiled in a lawsuit just now against Disney as well, because they are fuckers. It is Disney, isn't it, that released Cruella? I'm pretty sure it is. But look, this is what Jason Blum went on to say, and this is his wider, more deeper viewpoint that he has on this lawsuit and what it could all mean for the future of cinema. And he said this: what the streamers are betting on is that in the next 3 to 5 years there will only be 3 or 4 of them left pumping content into homes, and they'll be so powerful that they will be able to push the price down of producing, of paying talent, of paying producers, of paying writers, directors. What I just fucking said. I personally don't think they'll be able to do it, but that's what they're betting on. Now look, I personally don't believe they will be able to do that either. I'm just making sure there's no other quotes. I don't think they will be able to do that either. I think it is pretty much the given thing now that if you do a tremendous job on a movie or something like that, you're a director, a screenwriter. If you're a great cinematographer like Roger Deakins, if you're a great acting talent like Scarlett Johansson, for instance, I think it's pretty much agreed on now that you do get paid the spondylitis. You get what you deserve. And look, I spoke about that yesterday as well, the dirty side of movie making. And you've seen the likes of Mahershala Ali, Viggo Mortensen, the late great Chadwick Boseman, speaking about that dirty side, how it's not all glitz and glam. When you get on the set, it's stupid o'clock, 4 in the morning, 2 in the morning sometimes. You're working long shoots, you're getting makeup stuff done, and it's ghastly and tedious. That's the dirty side of the business. So whilst you would say, look, these guys are overpaid, they're getting too much money as it is, Scarlett Johansson should be happy with her 20 million up front for Black Widow, you don't see that other side of the industry. But they do. They have to work tedious hours, late hours, and it's a hard fucking job. Maybe not as hard as being a doctor. And perhaps there's an argument out there that doctors should earn the kind of money that movie actors are earning, but that's just fantasy and it's never going to happen, sadly. And ultimately they signed a fucking contract, so she deserves her money. In terms of this whole streaming stuff, I actually do agree with Jason Blum. I think it is the case that in the end, all of these streaming services will not be viable. The likes of Peacock and Paramount Plus, whatever the fuck else is out there. I think ultimately it all will be whittled down to the likes of Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and of course Disney. I think those and HBO Max, there'll be 4 or 5 streaming services. Apple may even bail out, incidentally. It may just be actually HBO Max and people like that, the aforementioned companies. It will whittle down to those 4 or 5 companies, and we will see them having the monopoly on streaming content, on where movies go after the release in theatres. And I think just now we're seeing the degradation of theatre releases as it is, the actual window shortening. And we're seeing pushback from actors, we're seeing pushback from directors, and I have actually got another article relating to this, incidentally, regarding a letter I believe sent to a contact of Scarlett Johansson's, a representative. Just an email in general speaking about it. Speaking from Disney's end, their promises before this movie came out. And as you can see here, I don't know where this is coming from. It's coming from Vulture. It was originally reported from Vulture. And this is apparently what the email said. Further to our conversation today, it is 100% our plan to do a typical wide release of Black Widow. We have very high expectations for the film and are very excited to do for Black Widow what we have just done with Captain Marvel, which was a huge hit. I think it's great to suck I don't actually know what the box office performance of Black Widow was. It was a huge success though, despite the sort of hate for Brie Larson that seemingly came out of large parts of the fandom. It may have been small parts, but you hear it. It's an echo chamber on YouTube, isn't it really? The email continued, we totally understand Scarlett's willingness to do the film, and her whole deal is based on the premise that the film would be widely theatrically released like her other pictures. We understand that should the plan change, we would need to discuss it with you and come to an understanding, as the deal is based on a series of very large box office bonuses. That's a very damning email indeed from Disney. That's almost confirming that they knew that it was linked, the salary of these major figures in this movie was linked to box office bonuses, and it's almost like they've sneakily put it out on the streaming service. They've cut Scarlett Johansson, her representatives, other actors in this from the knee down. They've not gave them a chance to fight their corner. They've just put it out same day as in the theatres and hid behind the pandemic as an excuse not to pay these actors what they are fucking due. And ultimately that email is damning. They know there's a bonus front sort of loaded salary, then bonus loaded salaries after it hits the theatres. And look, if this was outside a pandemic, this movie would have made $500 million in a bad run, and probably $1 billion plus in a good run. So she would have made a huge amount of money over and above that $20 million. So ultimately I think Scarlett Johansson is correct to pursue this lawsuit. I think Bob Chapek is absolutely scandalous to put out the actual press release to put out, hiding behind a pandemic and putting it all on Scarlett Johansson, a woman who's gave her all for the company over a decade, brought in a huge amount of money, as we said yesterday and as I said a couple of days before as well. So she is standing for other actors. She's making this a president sort of moment, and that a president moment I should say, not a president, because I know most people won't understand that pronunciation. She's making this a sort of a president moment, almost like the Bosman ruling in football, or soccer as other people like to call it. A defining moment basically saying you're not going to shit over me. You can put your movies on streaming service later, but you have to write it into fucking contracts. It cannot be a situation whereby the talent gets absolutely screwed over for the whims of a megalomaniac CEO. So fair play to Jason Blum from putting his hat in the actual ring back in Scarlett. It's the correct ring to put your hat in. Because look, they're absolutely in the wrong, Disney. And you got to respect a guy like that. He's got nothing to lose. He's got no worries in life. He is a very successful producer. I believe he's working primarily with Universal, isn't it? Is it Universal? I'm pretty sure it is. He's doing the sort of Monsterverse just now. So this guy's got nothing to lose, and he's putting his hat firmly in Johansson's, whatever you want to fucking call her, ring. And fair play to him, man, you've got to respect that. But look, moving on to the next topic. This is a Marvel heavy topic today, incidentally. That one wasn't really Marvel, but it was a link to Black Widow, which is very obviously Marvel. And as you can see here, me and Stephen were speaking on the show last night about the What If TV shows and the potential for live action spin-offs from that show. Different takes and characters, potentially same actors portraying them. And we spoke about the confusion that would create, and obviously a multiverse heavy saga coming out in the next couple of phases, and that's going to lead to confusion anyway for the average filmgoer who isn't the most tapped in to movie news, isn't the most connected to these scripts, to the actual process of these sagas. Me and Stephen are, because we fucking love movies, we love Marvel, we speak about it on the daily, and we are completely attuned to what Kevin Feige has in plan for these characters, for these movies, multiple versions of characters potentially. Average consumer, not so much, seen that before. And here we have the writer Michael Waldron of Loki and Multiverse of Madness fame coming out and addressing this potential confusion and how he doesn't think it's going to be an issue. That he says despite the big sort of backdrops, these complex storylines, it will maintain its humanity, and the complications within will not be an issue. This is what he's had to say. I'm going to try and find my fucking cursor again. I've just changed the actual article. This is what he had to say. I think he's got a big quote. This is coming in from Screen Rant, incidentally. Give them their due. They're giving me content and that I'm able to tap into and do a show out of. This is what he had to say. Anytime the story is expanding outward in such a big way, you want to make sure that you're not alienating audiences, that you're not robbing the overall story of stakes, that it becomes so big, unwieldy, that people don't quite know what they're supposed to care about. What I always focused on Loki and on Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness was that regardless of the crazy stuff that's happening, what's the emotional core of a story? How do you keep the humanity of it? What's great about the Marvel comics, and what and that's where the MCU excels as well. And so, however crazily we branch out into whether I can't even speak tonight, out and whether his language is fucking butchered as well, incidentally, the way he's speaking. Branch out and whether it's a multiverse, whether it's into space, whether it is, I think you just got to keep finding that core of relatability. That's what will make people care and make it digestible to my grandfather, who doesn't really might not know what the multiverse is. Look, it's satisfying to hear that they are keeping a lid on the complexity. Not so much the complexity, it can get crazy, it can get complex. You can have 3 different versions of characters web slinging around potentially in December. But no matter how complex it gets, no matter how much of a rabbit hole we get down, ultimately there will be that relatability in there. We will have a human story. We will be able to connect to the primary characters in the story, be it Peter Parker, be it Dr. Stephen Strange, be it the Scarlet Witch herself. We will be able to connect to the characters, to their plights, and however complex it gets, and I'm praying to God it gets pretty fucking complex, it will be similar to the Infinity Saga, to the movies that were born out and within that saga, where we get increasingly large conflicts, increasingly large stakes, but we were always connected to the characters within, and we always knew where we were. This is why I have complete confidence, and I completely back Kevin Feige and the team of people, writers, filmmakers in general, cinematographers, everybody that's behind this huge machine. I back him wholly, because he trusts the audience to have a degree of intelligence. He trusts them to find their own way. He won't hold your hand, but at the same time he will leave that relatability, he will leave that sort of human story in there. And I cannot fucking wait to see what this man has created for these phases moving forward. Of course, they're not all created yet. You very much are moving along as you go here, man. It's not everything is going to be formalised. But at the same time, there was a video on YouTube that showed that they'd very much had a working version of Endgame and Infinity War created fucking years in advance, and they really just chopped and changed little bits as they had to and tarted it up a bit with CGI and stuff like that. So maybe he does have it all under control and it's all planned. I don't know. I'm excited to see it though. Anyway, but I'm moving on to the next topic. Topic number 3. It's all about James Gunn. Look, I was covering this last night. I kind of seen this last night. He'd semi-called out Martin Scorsese. It turns out he's slightly backtracked in the ensuing hours. And we've got other dissenting voices in there. We've got Jason Momoa, maybe not dissenting, but coming out and backing comic book movies. And of course it was really just Marvel movies that not Kevin Feige, that Martin Scorsese came out against. But he kind of did go out against superhero movies in general and deem them theme park experiences. But look, I can understand that. I can understand what he's talking about. They are kind of theme park experiences. These are kind of experiences that you're not going to get in a Martin Scorsese movie. You're not going to get in a Francis Ford Coppola movie. They're very much get in there, get your popcorn, enjoy the ride and get to fuck back out. And if you want to go back on the ride again, you can. Whereas with a Scorsese movie, it'll affect you for long periods. You'll think long and hard about what he was doing. With a Spike Lee movie, it'll be the same. With a Chris Nolan movie, hopefully it'll be the same. And of course you do get that in these sort of Infinity War and Endgame movies, but with the vast majority of comic book movies, it is very much, not cheap thrills, but yeah, sort of thrillish. And then you go back and you don't really think long and hard about it. It's superficial. That's what I'm saying. But here is what James Gunn... this is what James Gunn has had to say about it. Having a beer tonight. The speech is kind of coming and going. But I'll get my shit together as I get into the end of the show. I'm absolutely certain. The sugar's wearing off from that little waffle that I ate. Sugary, chocolatey waffle. You don't need to hear about that though. This is not what Martin Scorsese. This is what James Gunn had to say about Martin Scorsese initially, as Alan Partridge would say on This Time. This is what he said. I just think it seems awful cynical that he would keep coming out against Marvel. He's technically only done it once, and then the press kind of nipped his head about it. So, but yeah, I see what you mean. Marvel, and then that is the only thing that would get him press for his movie. So he just kept coming out against Marvel. He didn't know he did it once, and then he had to keep addressing it when people were asking him. But again, I see what you're saying. So that he could get press for his movie. He's creating his movie in the shadow of the Marvel films. And so he uses that to get attention for something he wasn't getting as much attention as he wanted for it. I can see what you're saying there, James. He kind of was probably using the whole kerfuffle, the controversy surrounding the comments to shine a light upon his movie. Because he was kind of doing the press release, wasn't he, for The Irishman at the time, and probably crying out for attention and maybe suggesting that, look, it's not like the good old days. There's not enough space in theatres now for these kind of movies, so much so that I'm having to go to Netflix to get it greenlit and do it there. And look, you can understand his plight. I fully understood, as I said, Martin Scorsese's comments. This was an esteemed filmmaker, much like Coppola, who'd come out and probably railed against it a little bit. And was he a little bit poor in his wording? Perhaps he was. He was suggesting that there was no heart in the movies at all, that it was all, superficial. And as I did say, there is circumstances where that ain't the case in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You have the likes of Tony Stark having his huge evolution throughout these movies, to the point where he's not this selfish philanthropist from the beginning. He is very much a family man who makes the ultimate sacrifice at the end. And I would say that's emotional, and I would say that's a journey you went on with that character. And it ain't worthless, and it ain't really so much a theme park ride. The whole amazing universe that has been created by Feige and the gang. So whilst I understand his words and I can understand the point he was making, there isn't enough space for great independent movies now, although they will find eyeballs nonetheless. I did disagree with the wording. Where I would disagree with James Gunn is he did only say it once. He kind of came out once against the movie. He probably did use it as a means to get promotion for The Irishman, but he didn't come out multiple times and slag off the MCU. He said that once it created a controversy, a stir. People kept going and asking him, why did you say that, Martin? And he had to keep repeating and reinstating his beliefs and why he said it. So he was using it for promotion, but he wasn't coming out multiple times and blasting the MCU. But this is what James has come out and says. He's kind of stepped back a bit, and I think it was Josh Horowitz who actually interviewed James Gunn, and he's kind of stepped back as well. So this is what Josh said first and foremost. For the record, I wasn't trying to start a war between two directors I admire. If you watch, listen, there's a lot more nuance than many of those headlines are going with. James Gunn rules, as does Scorsese. Two different directors, totally different genres, two brilliant men in their own right. I know it's about 90 seconds of a 45-minute chat. I need to watch the interview incidentally, or listen to it if it's a podcast. Sounds fascinating. This is what James Gunn said in response to Josh Horowitz's sort of blasting of the press and their instant gratification. Fucking, what would you call it? I don't know. There's a word for it when you bring people in. Clickbait articles, headlines. He said this. Also, for the record, Martin Scorsese is probably the world's greatest living American filmmaker. That doesn't make sense, James. The world's greatest living American filmmaker. No, it doesn't make sense. He's either the world's greatest living filmmaker, or he's America's greatest filmmaker. The world's greatest living American filmmaker. Doesn't make sense to me, James, but yeah, anyway. I love and study his films, and will continue to love and study his films. I disagree with him solely on one point, that film based on comic books are innately not cinema. That is all. I do disagree with that as well. I can understand, as I keep fucking repeating myself, what he's saying about the whole theme park ride thing. It is very much bringing in people who otherwise perhaps wouldn't go to the theatres and go and see a movie, a more casual audience member, if you'd like. It's not for people who go in for the human condition, who watch French cinema, for instance, who perhaps solely go and watch deep, moving movies from directors like Scorsese. These kind of movies aren't for them. It's for a different audience, and Disney certainly do target that audience and try and get them in their droves to earn billions, and in some cases nearly $3 billion worth of money. But at the same time, it's very much film, all film. Everything that goes to the theatre, everything that's put onto a reel, be it digitally or fucking analogue, is certainly film. Whether you disagree with it, whether you like the film that's been put out is another thing, whether you like the content of the director's vision is another thing, but it's still fucking film. So that's where I absolutely do agree with James Gunn. I'm trying to get this other one up furiously as I speak a load of shite here. And as you can see, it's Jason Momoa. And he's speaking about the whole, obviously being railed by James Gunn's comments, and it's brought everything back to the surface, to boiling point, to a light little boil. And Jason Momoa's obviously been poked by the stick like a cobra, and he's come out to speak about it as well. He said this, it's like how people say that music is poppy, and this music is cool, but you know how hard it is just to get your music out there for people to hear. It's all subjective. I try not to pick on anything. So yeah, superhero movies are bubblegum. Precisely. You've said it so perfectly there, Jason. You says in a nice little neat sentence what I wanted to say just there. It's like bubblegum. It's inoffensive. It's easy to access, and you can just keep going back and getting a nice little shot of bubblegum again and again and again. But they're like Greek mythology. They have good and evil, heartbreaking moments, and gosh, you're taking away other art forms if you stop making them. You're just taking away visual effects, you're taking away what you can do with makeup. Exactly, man. That's the best part about these new sort of huge spectacle superhero movies. It's given access to amazing visual effects artists. It's given amazing makeup artists the chance to shine, and that's why they're all sweeping up Oscars. Not at the actual Oscars, they actually aren't. They keep getting the movies like The Favourite and stuff like that, and even Tenet get fucking completely snubbed at the Oscars. This is when he went on to say, though, I'm not someone who gets hired to play in a lot of cinema, but being able to do a superhero movie, I can make a movie about something I really care about. I have a vision for the whole totality of Aquaman. There are environmental issues that I get to put into it. So while you're going, oh yeah, it's just this popcorn movie, I'm like, well, I get to open people's eyes to things that are important to me. And of course, this was a guy who went and protested the building of, was it a fucking, I think it was an observatory or something, and wherever the fuck he's from. Where is Jason Momoa from? Where is Jason Momoa from? I don't know. But he went and he actually protested it. So this is a guy with morals. This is a guy who has the kahunas to step up to authoritative figures. This is a guy who cares greatly for the environment, not just on land but clearly in the ocean, because he's playing Aquaman and he's going to highlight the perils of climate change and all of that. I'm absolutely sure, environmental issues, and he gets to do that because he's a big name and he's starring in a movie like Aquaman. So again, whilst it's great to make great little independent movies and you can do the human condition beautifully, and it can be dark and it can be deep and it can be insightful and it can stick with you for fucking weeks afterwards, that has its audience, and it's certainly my audience. I'm part of that audience as well. I like all kinds of cinema. There is a space for big blockbuster movies where guys like Jason Momoa can get to a huge audience and put forward their views on environment issues and just issues in general. They get to explore it in this big huge blockbuster. There's space for the two movies, that's what I'm saying. Two different kinds of movies. There's space for all kinds of movies. And you can still go and watch any kind of fucking movie in the theatres. So stop whining, Scorsese. Stop whining about the whining, James Gunn. Move on and make good movies. Speaking of moving on though, this is my next topic, man. It's Ryan Reynolds, again, Marvel related. And Ryan's been out speaking about Deadpool, potential appearances as Deadpool in the MCU, and how it makes him slightly uneasy making these movies, because ultimately he can never be really comfortable, because he's always trying to better what he's did before. But look, I'll not paraphrase the man's words. I will actually, speak the man's words themselves. I'm actually trying to find the fucking topics. Yes, there it's here. This is the first one. Ryan Reynolds would play Deadpool in the MCU before the next sequel. And that would be interesting to see this guy in an ensemble movie in the MCU. How would they mesh the sort of wisecracking, profanity-laden, fourth wall breaking, met with a mouth with other characters that don't do anything like that? It'd be very intriguing to see if they could fit this guy into an ensemble movie. Could he fit into an Avengers movie, for instance? I don't know what the next big ensemble movie is. It could potentially feature Deadpool. That could be quite a few years after a potential sequel to Deadpool. But look, enough fucking warbling on. Let's see what he had to say. He said he was speaking to comicbook.com, and he says this: I love the idea of playing with Deadpool and Korg and some of the marketing materials, given the fact that Taika and I are in the movie, so I kind of got to scratch the itch inevitably anyway. And of course he scratched the itch again with a Free Guy promotion with that whole muscly thing, the alternate Ryan Reynolds character. And he had the Deadpool suit there. I can't get into the Deadpool suit anymore. So he's doing a great job of promoting this movie through the medium of Marvel and this character Deadpool. And I just thought it was so fucking intelligent, that whole Korg Deadpool first appearance in the MCU thing. What a way to promote a movie. We need to see more zany different ideas like that when promoting movies over here. I keep speaking about Indian promotion of movies, the motion posters, and the way they really do bump up the anticipation. We've not got that over here, and we need more of that over here. We need to do different things with promotion instead of teasers and trailers. It says this though about the potential of a appearance before a Deadpool 3, and this is what he had to say. I think both are pretty warranted. I think you're always going to zig when everybody's expecting you to zag when it comes to that character. As long as Disney's open to doing some pretty widely divergent, or some pretty widely divergent, or have some pretty widely divergent uses of Deadpool, then I dig it, man. I think it's all great. I just love the fact that Ryan Reynolds is saying dig it, incidentally. He's not the type of guy that I would imagine would use the word or the phrase dig it. Love that he's using it. And look, I'm loving the fact that he's open to all sorts of possibilities with this character, that he has really made his own. No one else can really play this character like Ryan Reynolds. I'm loving the fact that he is up for appearing and with other characters in this cinematic universe, as long as it's something that's authentic to the character and Disney can use it correctly. And look, ultimately I think he should always have some kind of creative license to that character. He shouldn't be bound to another figure, be it Kevin Feige or a director. He has done so well with this character in these last two movies, and ultimately he should have the final say on creative choices with it, because it's his, and he's what makes it so appealing. You take him away from it, you take his creative process for this character away, it's not the fucking same. It's going to lose something palpable. So great to see he's in this MCU. Intriguing to see how it's going to work. I'm going to quickly speak about this as well before I move on. He's been speaking about his anxiety around the process of making these movies, and I just found this so interesting. As someone who does love to almost sit like a little blue bottle fly or whatever on the wall and have a little peek into the process of making films, be that visual artists, model designing, stop motion with Leica, just stepping into the shoes of a director like S.S. Rajamouli and that Triple R thing. I just love doing it. I love seeing and peering into what it is like to make a movie, and just the mindset of the actors and directors, in this case Ryan Reynolds. And this is what he had to say. Deadpool for me is kind of like an anxiety inducing tightrope walk. Love that connotation he's conjuring up in my mind. I always think when I've got Deadpool just right, I'm speaking from experience from Deadpool 1 and 2 that I need to make it 30 or 40% better than it already is. Even if I'm at the moment where I'm like, this is perfect, this moment, then I stop and I go, okay, this has to be 30% better than it already is. It's a stressful thing to get it right, or at least right as far as I'm concerned. So no, I never really thought about it, but I did love the idea of playing with Deadpool and Korg, and some of the marketing materials given the fact that Taika and I are already. So I read that kind of the end of that quote already in the previous article. Just nice to see the insight into this guy, what drives him, and again, ultimately, why he has to have creative control over this character, at least where his part in the story is going. Because he is so devoted to it, he's so involved in the process, and he is really pushing to make it better and better and better. The vision for this character, where the stories are going with him. And if you take him away, you lose that 20-30% of brilliance that he's going to add on to the performance. And that would be a real crying shame. So I'm absolutely sure Kevin Feige is acutely aware of what he brings to this character. I'm absolutely certain he will do nothing to disrupt his creative processing. I am absolutely certain, no matter how fucked in the head it will probably be, that he will get the balance and he will pick the right director to get this acquiescing of Deadpool into the MCU just right. He will get it right somehow. He's got everything else right. I don't know how it's going to work personally. I don't know how they're going to put him in this cinematic universe. He's tonally completely different to anything there. Do you bring back the likes of Cable? Josh Brolin as a different character? Do you bring back the likes of is it Zazie Beetz? Is it Zazie Beetz that plays the Lucky character? I don't know. Do you bring her back? I don't know. All will be told in the course of the next 4, 5, 6 years. I'm sure we'll get a breakdown of Phase 5 and beyond as we move through Phase 4. And we'll get the next slate of releases. Lord knows there's a lot of fuckers speculating on the next slate of releases and putting up amazingly created photoshopped logos. And look, I'm impressed. They might get these guys in to do what with Disney, because some of their logos are better than the current real logos, like Loki and Thor: Love and Thunder, which seems to split opinion down the middle. I fucking love the logo. Stephen hates it. But look, speaking of Marvel, speaking of the MCU, just going to keep fucking speaking about it on the show tonight, man. It's in Marvel heavy. I should have just called this Heroes. We used to do a Heroes show back in the day, and then we kind of lost our way with it. I am struggling badly, man, to see this cursor. Where in the fuck is this cursor went to? Dark Avengers. I have pondered down there. Are we about to get a Dark Avengers? Well, of course, if you have been attuned to the latest Marvel projects, be that Black Widow or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you would have seen the Wyatt Russell character, US agent John Walker, having his little moment with this shadowy character who is controlling things from afar for a different organisation, seemingly. Recruiting him onto this organisation to do some nefarious acts. And then, of course, the same character pops up. I actually don't know her name, incidentally. I'm sure we'll find it in this article somewhere. She pops up at the end of Black Widow in an end credits scene and seemingly recruits Yelena to take down Clint Barton, or attempt to anyway. And that is looking like it's going to blend seamlessly into the events of Hawkeye. This character is controlling various figures within this organisation, and there's some speculating over whether this could be a Dark Avengers. Now, if it is a Dark Avengers, I don't want to shit on it from afar, but not having known much about, or not knowing much about Dark Avengers and what form it took in the actual comics, I presume it is a thing in the comics. Surely the fuck it was better than US Agent and Yelena, and perhaps some other characters appearing. If that's the Dark Avengers, then they stand no chance against the real Avengers, because they're a little bit underpowered. Of course, US Agent does have the Super Soldier Serum, but he's a bit gimpy. And Yelena has got a lot of development to do before she can hack it against potentially big figure Avenger characters. And she's taking on Clint Barton, which is probably the best one to take on just now. He's getting a little bit older and seemingly going to be departing the cinematic universe shortly. Looks as though he's passing the baton over to his daughter. But yeah, this is really just an opinion piece, and as you can see here, suggests that Black Widow's Dark Avengers setup outdoes Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And really the basis of what they're suggesting here is that it's Yelena. She was set up a little bit better in that movie. The audience connected to her better than John Walker, and they want to follow her on her next sort of project journey. And it seemingly is going to be her taking on Clint Barton. And they suggest, this writer, I don't know who the writer is, I'll bring it back up and we'll find out, shall we? Suggests that for that reason it's a better setup. It's actually John... what a name, Urkariola. They never do fucking simple names. John Smith on these websites, do they? Did they actually say something potentially about it actually being a Dark Avenger setup? Because actually I briefly skimmed over the article. I kind of liked the headline and I went with it as a topic to speak about. And she said, Val is a powerful and fascinating addition to the MCU. That's the character's name. She's effectively revamped incarnation of Nick Fury, who handpicked the original 6 members of the Avengers in 2012. In the Falcon and Winter Soldier, De Fontaine appeared at John Walker's lowest point after he was stripped of the role of Captain America when he publicly murdered a member of the Flag Smashers. Valentina both charmed and intimidated Walker into falling in line with her agenda. And the disgraced soldier was receptive to the idea of redemption. When Walker regained the public's trust by helping Captain America, Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes, Val rewarded him with a new costume and superhero identity as the US agent. So yeah, it seems as though this is going to be a sort of a darker, more shadowy organisation that's been recruited by this Val character, Valentina De Fontaine to be precise. And it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. Is there going to be traction for this in terms of TV shows, movies in the MCU? I don't know if it's big enough to get a movie, but perhaps a TV show on Disney Plus would be an intriguing little thing. We build these various figures out in this, and then we throw them into an ensemble TV show. I don't know how it would fucking work. Maybe it will get a movie. But to suggest that Florence Pugh's Yelena had a better, more noteworthy introduction to the Dark Avengers than John Walker's, I don't know if I agree with that, man. I quite connected to Wyatt Russell's performance. I thought John Walker was a really intriguing character. He wanted to do good. I think he was a thoroughly good character within. He also was an esteemed veteran of the army. And he kind of went off the tracks and get a lust for power. He wanted to be better than Steve Rogers ultimately, didn't he? And then he has that moment where he gets the blood in the shield. It's a dark moment for him. I think this is a morally ambiguous character that I've connected with, and I'm looking forward to seeing in future projects. Likewise, I'm looking forward to seeing Yelena. She's obviously going to be the next Black Widow, but I wouldn't say one or the other captivated me more or less. Yelena was a standout in Black Widow, so perhaps she did, but John Walker was fucking brilliant in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so I don't want to be playing these characters off each other right away. I want to see these characters working in a team, potentially a dark, shadowy, alter Avengers, and see where that goes. That intrigues me quite a bit. But look, man, moving on to the final topic. Is it the final? No, I've not even got a final topic. That is the final topic. That's the final topic. Wow, didn't realise that. It's because I've got IMDb up for Zapata Parambarai. That's going to round the show up then on that note. What do you make of the topics I touched upon? What do you think about Jason Blum siding with Scarlett Johansson, ScarJo, in this battle for supremacy between the actors seemingly in Hollywood and the big institutions such as Disney? What do you make about the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the writer Michael Waldron promising that the MCU will not lose touch with its roots, with its human core, and that despite the big sort of celestial, cosmic multiverse battles, it will remain true to what we have seen before, and it will not get too confusing for perhaps your grandfather or your elderly relative if you don't have a grandfather like me anymore, sadly. What is your thoughts on the other topics I touched upon as well? What do you make about the whole Scorsese thing, him going after Marvel movies, superhero movies, and like Jason Momoa and James Gunn coming out and fighting their corner? You can comment below if you've got anything to say at all down below in the comment section. You can also like the video if you've enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel on YouTube, hit the follow button over on Twitch if you want to see more content like this in the future, and you will get it. That is how you enable it. But look, until then, I am done. I've got a comment here before I go. Game Battle, where is Spider-Man No Way Home teaser and trailer? Do you have any information? Man, that is tighter than the tightest thing in the world. They are not letting it slip, Sony. They are not releasing anything, man. They are teasing the fans hardcore just now on social media. No information at all on teasers or trailers. It's got to be coming soon. The movie comes out in December. We're in August now. It's what, 4 months away? We're going to have to get some kind of teaser. I think they don't want to release any information promotion wise with this movie because there is clear spoilers every way you look. We're going to have the likes of Green Goblin in there. I'm convinced of it, and we will absolutely have Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield in this movie, and I think it'll be sizable roles. And if you give out a teaser, you're going to have to dance around that and cut it like crazy to keep them out of it for the shock experience of getting into the theatre for the first time. So I think they're going to leave it late as fuck. I don't think we're getting a teaser for a long time, man, and it pains me because I want to see everything about this movie now, because it's my second most anticipated movie behind June for 2021. But look, man, time will tell. Maybe they'll release it tomorrow and I'll look like a fucking Tadger. I don't know. But look, man, I'm done anyway. Bye.